call to order this CFPUA board meeting for January 12th, 2022. Here we go. First, we'll determine a quorum. We have two board members that need to be excused. Mr. Rivenbark and Mr. Briggs. Take a motion to excuse.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have the adoption of our agenda for today. Take a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
we're just adopting the agenda, yeah, I'm all on board, sorry, we don't have a consent agenda.
Okay.
That was the second, right?
Yeah, yes, it was.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have approval of our minutes for our December meeting. Mr. Hackman.
December meeting, minutes are in the packet, need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, next, public comments. No speakers
No, sir.
today, Donna? Thank you. Next, come to our consent agenda. We have 9 items before you for consideration today.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pull number 7 for clarification,
Okay?
and I'd also like to make a motion to approve the other 8, I guess. 8?
Okay? Take a
Second.
motion to approve those items.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Zappel, item 7.
Thank you. Number 7 is the Black and Beach International Company Contract Amendment number 3 for the Sweeney Treatment Enhancement Project. I'm assuming that's the GAC project, am I right?
It is. Mr. Stiers is available to answer questions.
Good morning.
Good morning, Frank. Pretty simple, you know, it looks as though there is we're pushing back to September of '22 from the June 6th date. Do I read that correct, or what has happened to push it back again?
Okay. So the actual date that the new contactors will be in service and operational and processing water to the distribution system is June 6th. After that, there'll be additional things going on, yard in the dressing up and things that to finalize the contract. We'll go through a punch list process and the final completion dates in September.
Well, thanks, Frank. That's all I wanted. I just saw that September date in there, and I thought, holy moly, we pushed this thing back again, but we have not.
No,
right?
sir.
June 6th.
Yes, sir.
We'll break some champagne out. All right, thank you. That's all.
All right, with that, we'll take a motion to approve item 7.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
That will conclude our consent agenda items. Move on to new business administrative reports. Linda, any attorney's report?
No, I don't have anything today or closed session.
Next, executive director's report. Mr. Walter.
Yes, sir. We have our key indicators report, our environmental report, and our safety report, as well as our quarterly CIP status update. Staff are available to answer questions.
Mr. Chair, under the key indicators, the undesignated fund balance, I'd like to draw attention to the fact that we're now up to $72 million, the goal being $50 million. I know this has become almost a monthly routine. I'm bringing it up. I'm just wondering what the thinking is. Should we reset the $50 million goal higher? Because we don't seem to be going down, it's closer. We seem to be kind of continuing up. And any thoughts on that, Ken?
Well, we would like to complete the work to update our capital improvement plan and see what demands that may be made on this fund balance from that revised plan before we make any recommendations regarding changing that goal. We are seeing consistent cost increases in existing projects and planned projects, as well as bringing forward new projects based on better understanding of what our needs are. So I think it's entirely probable that we will have other potential uses on the capital side for pay-go for this money.
And I thought John had said in the finance meeting last week that it was also a function of of when spend was happening and when transfers were happening. So it truly wasn't
That's right.
you know, it didn't look as high as it was because we had not, the spend rate wasn't as fast as we expected it to be.
Yeah, we're seeing a slower pay-as-you-go funded capital expenditures compared to last year. So it is a function of time, but we will see new requests coming forward as well as changes in existing budgets.
As soon as you think next month, we'll start seeing that drift down?
I can't tell you whether the spend rate will change, but I can tell you that we will have some information around the CIP at what time, Carl?
We will have our draft CIP that we'll bring to long-range planning at the February meeting.
To the next month. Okay. We're gonna keep an eye on this. You know, the goal, again, going back several years when we set the $50 million goal, was to make sure that we got the money out of our account and on the street. What you're saying is, it is going on the street, just a little bit slower than we anticipated. So I'll look forward to seeing that happen.
Absolutely.
Well, at the same time, I think we're understanding that there's no shortage of surprises that can arise out of nowhere. And that we, you know, the more conservative we are with those funds, I think the better off we are.
Larry, that's at the base of what I'm saying. If we want to re-examine that, and we think that the
Right.
$50 million goal is based on information from 3 years ago, then maybe we should lift it to $70 million, if that's appropriate. I just, want to have that discussion. I just hate setting something and then just watching it go the other direction.
Yeah, I think it's just a timing issue.
And you will want to see what the potential CIP is to compare that reserve against potential spends. And we'll have that information in a month.
Good. All right, thanks.
So are there any further questions on those 4 reports? Then if I might, I'd like to bring forward an action item. We've shared both with the HR committee and with the executive committee a desire to add a new position within the organization mid-year. That position would be essentially a deputy general counsel or deputy authority attorney. I shared in our write-up, I have more than 17 years of direct experience working with water sector attorneys, have a very good understanding of the workload that a utility can place upon legal services, either external or internal. And I'm very impressed by the level of effort and the ability to juggle a very heavy workload that our authority attorney has exhibited. But we are seeing more work coming in terms of response to litigation and the day-to-day blocking and tackling associated with an expanding, growing, robust system. And we think it's time to provide a full-time understudy for your authority attorney to take some of that minutia workload so we can focus her high skill set on the more complicated topics that we're dealing with. So we put that forward as a recommendation for a mid-year position. We are able to fund it within the current budget constraints. Questions?
Do you have a salary range that you work in, or will it be an on-call per hour?
It's a salary range, so this will be our first full-time position. Although technically reporting to your executive director, the salary range is the same as your deputy executive directors. And day-to-day reporting and practical reporting will be to your authority attorney, your general counsel. Other questions?
You need a motion?
We would like a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
John's not with us today, so I'll be taking financials.
Okay. So the minutes from are we on finance?
No,
I'm
but
sorry.
we can get there quickly. It's okay. I'll get there by the time you get to the vote.
Spread it out. Food's not
Hey,
coming
walk on
until
run.
11:30. Spread it out, Wes.
So executive committee met January 5th. The minutes are in the packet. Don't believe long-range planning met, correct?
Long-range planning did not meet.
No meeting.
There are no minutes in the packet.
Okay.
That makes
Now,
some.
Now finance.
now we're on fire.
Now, finance.
Finance committee met, last week, January, I don't know the date off the top of my head, but last Wednesday in
Fifth.
January. Okay, the minutes are in the packet, and, Mr. Walbrook has a presentation for the monthly financials.
Yeah, so in the role of John McLean today is your executive director, who's very excited apparently to get up here and tell you about the financials. Looking at our operating revenues and expenditures through November 30th, which is 5 months into our fiscal year, we're pleased to share that revenues have exceeded expenditures. Operating revenues were at $37,966,413, and operating expenditures were at $33,222,811, for a net positive change in fund balance of $4,743,601. Any operating surplus is a function of revenues, as expenditures are constrained by accounting controls and our constant action to manage to and within our budget. As you can see, and as was mentioned by Commissioner Zappel, as of November 30th, our unrestricted fund balance was $72.9 million, again, well above the $50 million target. And this increase is due in this part of the year through overperformance in our water and wastewater revenues as compared to budget, and slower pay-as-you-go funded capital expenditures compared to the year. And that's a snapshot in the year. We may see pay-as-you-go expenditures increase over the last part of the fiscal year. So if you do have questions and I'm unable to answer them, what I'd like to do is take them in and have a written report in your next weekly update. Questions?
Okay, the second item in the finance committee packet is also a customer service update. And so we do have updates on the two loan assistance programs, so we'll just, continue to update the board. So, Christie's got that.
So I'll just give you a really quick update on where we're at with the two programs that are most prevalent right now for customer assistance. The first being the city and county program, the $1 million. The ARPA funds. So right now, these numbers were as of Friday. So I'm just going to give you just a little bit of an update because, I looked at them again this morning. So the awards that are currently in consideration, we have 708, so it's went up just a smidge. The awards deemed ineligible or duplicated are 754. And just a little bit of clarity on that, customers have applied multiple times, or they may have charges that fall outside the program range. So either they weren't delinquent as of October 15th, or they may have some really old charges or transfer charges from other locations that would not allow them to be eligible for this particular program. So the award amounts to date are 435, and I know these numbers, right? This is as of Friday. So we have 359 where we have actually received payment. The total is now up to about $99,000. I'm sorry, that's for balances outside the program, the award dates. And the total amount that we've received to date is $306,000. So, checks must have been cut on Friday. We got them on Monday, and so that number has increased quite a bit. The median amount, though, hasn't changed much. It's just off by pennies, and then that range, as well as the percentage of city to county, has not changed either. Thank you very much.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
If you could go back one quick, sorry.
Sorry. Okay.
Can you speak a little bit about the balance outside award dates being $96,000?
Sure. So those amounts are going to be anything that has become delinquent after October the 15th, or that was delinquent prior to January 27th of 2020. So the dollars had to actually be delinquent by October 15th in order to be to be considered. So if
So would you say most of that is before the January or after the October?
it's after, the majority of that is probably the after October. If there are any that are from prior to, it could be because it was a balance that was left at another location that's now transferred to their active account that would make them ineligible. We've had a few of those situations. Also, if the customer failed to put service in their name, and then if it was disconnected under the prior tenants, those charges, although they were for periods that may have occurred within the program dates, are not eligible because they did not get added to the account until after the program date, and are therefore not delinquent or weren't delinquent as of the October 15th date. So there's a lot of different variables that we're looking at when we're considering or giving the county and the city the opportunity to consider the award.
Christie,
Yes, sir.
what happens to those people? Or what happens to those accounts or those people?
Sure. So if they were given an award from the city or the county, and they have a balance that is outside of that award amount, we reach out to them and offer them a payment plan. And if they, a lot of those people will accept the payment plan. If it's a balance that they can manage, then, they'll pay that as well. Or we allow them to look at other assistance programs. And we have a list of what those programs are and where they can turn if they still need additional assistance.
Do any of them just simply get their water shut off and we walk away?
If they opt for the payment plan, they're not going to have their water disconnected as long as they keep those conditions. But some people have opted for the payment plan and then are defaulting on the payment plan.
So how big is that universe?
Well, currently we have that 353, and the majority of the people that we were continuing to turn off are not the ones defaulting on the payment plans. They are the ones that are now delinquent on their charges. The letters that we generated for today were down to a balance of $285 that are delinquent. So we really come down from that over $2,000. Now we're down to the $285.
And how many accounts?
The number of letters that went out today was 398. So we've been doing right around between 350 to 400 letters a week. But those delinquent charges, as we get into these lower dollar amounts, are much more manageable. And so we're seeing far fewer people actually get disconnected. And once they get the letter, they're taking action to avoid the disconnect. All right. Now on to the LEWAT program. So this is a program that is being administered through DHHS. We did an information sharing agreement with DHHS. So these awards are people who were automatically matched. So if they are receiving assistance through some other program that is administered through DHHS that is an eligible program, then they were automatically pledged an amount to satisfy their delinquent balance. So this number has not changed since Friday. So to date, we've received 551 pledges, totaling right around $290,000. So it's been a very effective program. Now, I did want to just kind of look at the overall fiscal year for FY22. So to date, through this program as well as other programs, excluding the city and the county program, we have actually received 1,055 pledges for customers, totaling right around $596,000. So that kind of hopefully puts things into perspective as far as what we have received on customers' behalf in order to pay those delinquent balances.
Christie, I'm going to ask a dumb question. I don't quite understand what a pledge means.
Okay.
Who's pledging what?
Sure. So like with DHHS, when they make a pledge, they will send something to us and say, on Mr. Zappel's behalf, we are going to pledge $500. We put a pledge on the account, and that will stop any further collection efforts. So that's going to, keep the customer from having a disconnect up until the time that we receive those funds.
So the pledge is made by DSS.
DSS, it could be made by Good Shepherd or, any number of agencies, Salvation Army, Help Hub. So, it's a paper contract basically saying that these funds are forthcoming.
I see. And do we know or have a feel for how much money they have to pledge?
I don't. Like with Help Hub, they have, like a discretionary account, but they help for lots of other services. And with DHHS, I'm not sure what their amount is, but they did extend the program until September of 2023, assuming that the funds do not run out.
So LEWOP, just to interject for a sec, Christy, and this may need Ken. So LEWOP is extended through 2023, and do you think it'll rinse and repeat, get refunded, or is this a one-time thing, is your sense?
Originally, it was supposed to be a one-time assistance program, so, the ask was a one-time ask, but considering that they are extending it, and these people are, continuing to be eligible for these other programs, I could see them also allowing customers to, to be eligible more than once. Again, these customers haven't asked for these funds through LEWOP. These have been automatic matches with CFPUA for those balances.
Which makes sense. That's bureaucratic streamlining, something we don't always get to see, right?
Right.
The second question
Yes, ma'am.
was, and forgive me if we've covered this before, but I could get a refresher. The city and the county both put different sets of pots of money into one place. And is there a mechanism that certain people's bills are paid by certain of those funds, or is it all just a blend of funding? Because I know we're saying that 3/4 of it are residents that are inside the city who are qualifying.
Right.
Are those two pots of money we got from the county and the city, that all just sitting in one place and there's just going out randomly, or how does that accounting work?
Sure. So the city and the county they still have those funds, and they write us checks to cover, the customer's account balances based on the award determination. So we don't actually have those funds. Now, if the city were to expend all of their $500,000, they're not going to say, okay, if you're a city customer, then you're no longer eligible because we've expended our funds. Then the county would pick those up. So what they're trying to do is to address their citizenry first, and then, the other entity would then pick up those charges, assuming that they would expend that entire balance.
If I might add, it's important to keep in mind that CFPUA Assist program, which is funded by grants from the city and county, ends at the end of this month. Any unexpended funds will be retained and reallocated by the city and county to other requests. And that.
And I know we were trying to, sorry, Ken, I know we were trying to walk the line between keeping those funds available and getting through our entire list. Are we gonna have a bunch of unmet needs when that expires on January 31st, just because we haven't been able to get the letters out?
There will be some unmet needs, and I'll ask Christy to chime in on this with her thoughts. My observations are those unmet needs are really driven by the constraints of the program as it exists today. So needs that are outside of the qualification window of is it January 21st, 2020, and then October 15th of 2021.
Yeah, I'd love to be reassured that we don't have a huge cohort of people that were just on the lowest part of the list in terms of how much they owed or how delinquent they were, and that we don't send out letters and they get them on February 1st and they're unable to petition for those funds which they would otherwise be eligible for. I don't want to have a huge mismatch in that. And so is there a way to make sure we don't need to request another extension for a month or two?
We'll go and we'll try to the best of our ability, analyze the remaining population. I don't suspect that we will get another extension from our partners. It was a last-minute decision to give us the 30-day extension that we received. Because there are competing demands for those funds in terms of housing and community engagement, that those funds are being asked to be pulled back and used towards.
Okay, so I just have to push back a little bit on that, Ken, because when we talked about this in November, I think it was the sense of the board that for, administrative reasons, we don't want to miss a bunch of our folks just because there's an arbitrary cutoff. The city and the county are literally awash in federal money right now. And the idea that the most crucial service you get, which is your water service, would somehow be put down a notch or two because the city is pushing back against, it's not like COVID went away. It's not like people's financial difficulties went away. So I really don't want to have an administrative reason why we miss the goal of all of this hard work we put into making sure our folks would get covered. So because we are not meeting again before this program expires or the date hits us January 31st, I think we need to decide right now what our if-then is. If we have a certain number of accounts that are going to miss their opportunity just because we haven't mailed them the letter yet, let's decide a number. And if that's the case, then we automatically, I think, need to generate a request to the city and the county that we need another month or two before our paperwork is done. I don't know if other people have a sense. I know that this has been drawn out and people want to move on, but again, I would hate to miss our goal that we set that we've been working on for a year and a half just because of administrative paperwork, bureaucracy reasons.
As your staff, we'd be glad to carry that desire of the board, as we would understand it, to ensure that we leave nobody behind and see if there's opportunities for further extension.
Ken, this is Jonathan. From the county standpoint, what will need to happen for the remaining funds to remain with CFPUA? For me, if I allocate resources, my expectation is that they'll be spent used. And I think the overall goal was to help people, not to, have the money go back into our general fund. So what needs to happen there?
I think we would need confirmation from the CFO, who, as I understand it, is the grants manager of the ARPA funds, that the county would like to hold the program open, and under what conditions they would like to hold the program open. We have a similar challenge or opportunity with the city, getting feedback from the CFO of the city for the same opportunity.
So has that request been made, or do Rob and I need to do that, or?
I think that would be helpful, since there's so many competing needs. And of course, as your staff, we would be glad to carry back what we think we're hearing as the consensus of the board to ask for an extension.
Commissioner Zappa, your thoughts?
One before Rob, we already know that the eligibility cuts off at October. So we're not really running the program on. We're just catching up from a paperwork standpoint to all of our folks who are still waiting for that letter. And I don't know, Christy, if you have a sense of, you may have said this, how far down our list we are and how much remains to be notified. Because again, these folks it's not current bills that they're going to be exempt from. It's old, before October 2021 bills. We've already cut them off from more funding, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and
What do you think?
yeah, we can put a number to that. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I would imagine, because in order to be considered delinquent, the charges have to be 60 days or greater, and in excess at this point of $285. So a lot of those delinquencies, if we're down to 285, are going to be current, more recent charges. They're not going to be those older charges that would have been delinquent as of October 15th. But again, we can quantify that, and I can get that back to you.
But at the same point, everybody that's delinquent has been notified that they are delinquent.
In some fashion.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
between the 100, the $100 and the 285, we've got that gap. But yeah, if they have a balance over $285, yes, they have been notified.
So there shouldn't be any part of our service group that
Right.
does not know if they have an overdue balance. And-
Correct. And those people that, you know, they've received that extra letter, you know, to your point, have they been notified? Yes, on their bill, they can see what is delinquent, what is outstanding. But an actual, this is the amount of that, you know, that falls into the category where you would be eligible for disconnect. A lot of the customers have received that letter, but there is still, you know, that amount that haven't, between the 100 and the 285. And that's only with regard to residential. Non-residential have been at $100 since October of 2020.
Because I think we're getting stuck on, there's a group that, the funds apply for delinquencies. That's a very separate program from our disconnect program. And so those letters, you know, happen as your balance is then come due. But that's a different population than, these programs are intended to help Group A. Eventually, they may be disconnected and fall into Group B, but
Right.
all of Group A has been notified.
Correct.
Chrissy, does the ERA, you know, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, through DSS, can those monies be applied towards utilities?
We have received funds for that, yes. And that's part of that number, that last number that I gave you,
Yeah.
of the 1,055. We have received HAP money, we've received the ERA money, other, you know, ARPA money that is not related to the city and county program. So I think currently there are 8 different federal type programs, grants that are out there that we're receiving money from.
Just the county just received, this week, $13 million to replenish the ERA fund there. So I don't know how people get steered towards that. That has to come through this, almost this form of pledging, basically,
Right.
from DSS to CFPUA, is that right?
Yes. But again, like with the LEWAP, it was an automatic match, right? So the customer
Yeah.
did not have to apply, which is fantastic.
Ken, do we need a motion of any sort to contact, you know, certainly on the county side, I can speak to that. I think Commissioner Barfield and myself will reach out to Lisa Wurzbacher.
I think I get a sense of the will of the board, and I can move forward from that.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, sustainability, I don't believe met this month, is that correct?
That's correct.
Human Resource Committee, Commissioner Barfield?
We did meet this last week. Minutes are in your packet. If you have any questions, I think Ken wanted to touch on a couple things that we did in regards to bringing on an assistant to work with Ms. Linda Miles, another attorney, as well as we looked at the safety bonus days off and decided to revert that into another form of a day off for employees. But those things are in your packet.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Okay, with that, with no closed session, any final comments? Stephanie?
I'd just like to wish Commissioner Barfield a happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Are we saying?
Happy birthday, Joe.
We have our strategic planning after this, but for now, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. So we're gonna take
Let's take a
Heck, we'll break.
10-minute break, is that appropriate? And then we reconvene. And we have our consultant who will lead us through our strategic planning initiative.